goodness. What a warm, warm welcome. Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here with you all today. Brown class of 2025. I am excited. I'm excited to be with you on this deeply meaningful occasion. And I understand how much hard work, sacrifice, and resilience it has taken to make it here. So before we begin, I want you to just take a moment, look around, and soak it in, because you did it. So as someone who has spent most of her life on a track, I've come to realize that running your race has less to do with speed and medals and more to do with purpose, with endurance, and with trust. But here's what might surprise you. Running was never my dream. I never dreamed of being on Olympic teams, on podiums. I was just this shy teenager who was at a brand new school. I didn't know anybody, and my family encouraged me to go out for the track team. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I was really excited to try out, and I came out. And on that first day, the coach had everybody running 60 meters. And so I got in line for my turn. I ran as fast as I could. And I was met with this kind of confused look on my coach's face. And he asked me to run again. So I did. Again, I saw that same confused look. He had me do it again and again. And finally, he whipped out this measuring wheel. And he actually measured the track because he thought he got the distance wrong. It turns out I was pretty fast. But that moment, it changed my life, and I had no idea what was coming. But I was set on a path that I didn't ever really imagine. It was one that was filled with intensity, with discipline, and with growth. And it quickly took me all the way to my first Olympic Games. That first Olympic Games was in Athens, and I was a teenager. I was 18 years old, and everything was brand new and exciting. Just making the Olympic team, it felt like this huge accomplishment of a lifetime. And I did everything you could do at the Olympic Games. I walked opening ceremonies, I stayed in the Olympic Village, I traded pins, I met athletes and people I had admired since my childhood. And I also ran my heart out in the 200 meters. I crossed the finish line, I looked up, and I realized that I got a silver medal. I didn't quite understand that accomplishment because I was actually very disappointed until I found my parents in the stands, and then they quickly helped me put into perspective that a silver medal at 18 years old was pretty incredible. But that moment really shifted everything for me. It was a moment that lit a fire. I realized that this is what I wanted to continue to do, and I wanted to come back and fight for that gold medal. So 4 years later, I returned to the Olympics, but this time every single thing was different. There were a lot of expectations. I had sponsors, I had responsibilities, and the media made it very clear I was the favorite. I had trained relentlessly, I was focused, I was ready, and I gave everything that I had. But I came away with another silver medal to the exact same person. And this time I was crushed, I was devastated, and I was paralyzed by the feeling that I had failed. I felt like I had let everyone down, including my country. And that loss, it took me to a really dark place. I questioned if I would ever reach the top, but it was really my support system. They stood behind me, and they helped pull me out of that. Together, we reevaluated all of my training, my nutrition, my strength work, recovery, even who I was surrounding myself with. If there was just 1% that we could get better, we changed it. And so then in 2012, I arrived at my third Olympic Games. But this time I was calm, I was confident in my preparation, I had this sense of peace. And I realized if this is for me, it would be for me. And so again, I ran my heart out in that 200 meters. I crossed the line. I looked up at the screen, and for the first time, my name was on top. I had finally done it. I had finally won that Olympic gold medal. And that year, I actually came home with 3 gold medals in a world record. And it really was this incredible feeling, but honestly, more than anything, it was this huge relief. And here's the truth. It didn't quite live up to the hype that I had built in my head. And it really took me some time to process that and to unpack it. And I think it was that I had obsessed over this one moment for so long. It never stood the chance to match the dream. Because the real magic, it was in the process. It went far beyond just the medal. It was the journey, and it was the stretching and the struggle and the growth. It was in the people and in the perseverance. That was the gift. And so from that point forward, I made a promise to myself. I would never again take the journey for granted. I would embrace it all, the lessons, the losses, and also the quiet in-between moments that really shape who we are. I continue to strive for greatness, reaching for new goals, stepping outside of my comfort zone, trying new events. But eventually I found myself in a place where I did have the medals, and I did have the accomplishments, and so much of what I had been pushing to achieve. But I didn't have what mattered most to me. There was something really, a desire growing deeper inside of me that had nothing to do with track. I wanted to become a mother. But I had a lot of fear around motherhood, and that really was because of what I had seen with my teammates. I had watched them lose sponsorships, face judgment, or simply just disappear from the limelight when they became pregnant. I heard the message loud and clear. Being a professional athlete and a mother didn't mix. And that fear led me to do what so many female athletes did long before me. I hid my pregnancy. Even before I shared the news of my pregnancy, I was offered a contract that was 70% less than what I had previously been making. And in track and field, the way that the contracts are set up is they are largely performance-based. And so you go to the Olympics, you go to World Championships, and you get a bonus. But if you don't, your pay is reduced. If you're pregnant, or if you've just had a baby, there's nothing in the system to protect you. You're actually penalized. So I asked for maternal protections, time to recover after childbirth. And initially, I was told that I could have it, and I was thrilled. It was what I had asked for. But when the contract came back, there was no mention of pregnancy. There was no mention of maternity. They were willing to make accommodations for me, but they weren't willing to set that precedent for all their female athletes. They told me that they wanted to take it on a case-by-case basis. Well, this fight lasted so long that I actually ended up giving birth to my daughter, and I had a very traumatic birth experience. I had been diagnosed with a severe case of preeclampsia, and my daughter was born 2 months early. She had a fight of her own. But that experience, it gave me the courage I needed to do something far outside of my comfort zone. I wrote a New York Times op-ed about the experience, along with teammates and colleagues of mine, and I was absolutely terrified. I remember actually shaking when I was writing the words. But I knew that I needed to speak up, because staying silent would also mean staying complicit. So I did, but not just for myself, for every woman who had been told to choose. In that moment, it really became a catalyst. The decision opened the door to something so much bigger than me. After fighting for maternal protections and seeing real change ripple through the industry, I knew that I had to keep going. I made it back to the Olympics after having my daughter, but this time I got to do it in my own shoes. And I was the first Olympian to be able to compete in a brand that they actually owned. So Seish, my company, was born not just from creativity, but from necessity. And at Seish, we make shoes specifically to fit the form of the female foot. What I learned is that shoes have been made for men. They have been, a mold of a man's foot has been used to make women's sneakers. And when I learned that, I knew I was absolutely where I needed to be because we deserve better, and we had to build it. And now through Always Alpha, the sports management firm that I co-founded that's dedicated entirely to female athletes, we're working to rewrite the rules of representation, championing female athletes as whole people and not just as performers. My daughter saw me walk away from a system that wouldn't protect me, and then watch me build one that would. And that is the legacy that I will always continue to fight for. But throughout all of this, there's one thing that has anchored me, and that is my faith. Hebrews 12, 1 through 2, I'm paraphrasing, says, "Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus." That's it. That is the center. That's where I find peace, direction, and strength. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, it means choosing trust over fear, even when we can't see what's ahead. It means surrendering the illusion of control and living out our calling, not for applause, but in obedience. So when the world says to shrink, Jesus says stand. And when the path is unclear, he is the one who lights our next step. My faith has never made the race easy, but it has made it purposeful. And in the moments I've been most unsure, it's given me the clarity to keep going. Fixing our eyes on Jesus also means removing the distractions and burdens that try to hold us back, whether that's fear, comparison, pride, or the need for approval. It's the daily choice to keep our hearts on what truly matters. The race that we are running, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it takes endurance, it takes faith, and it takes commitment to keep going, even when the pace feels slow or the finish line seems out of reach. And sometimes it's gonna feel like we're falling behind. It feels like your path might be winding when everyone else is straight. But God has a unique path marked out just for you. You weren't meant to run anyone else's race. So stay the course, even when it's hard, because we know it's gonna be hard. Because we don't run for temporary rewards. We truly run for something that's internal. And the beautiful thing, our hope is secure. Not in our achievements, not in our titles, not in how well things are gonna go, but in Christ. He is the constant, he's the guide, he's the source of strength when yours runs out. In the finish line, it's already won. So to the class of 2025, your race may look nothing like mine, and that's exactly the point. Maybe you're still figuring it out, maybe your plan just shifted, maybe everything fell apart completely, maybe you're wondering if you're enough or if you're ready. Well, let me just tell you, you are. You don't have to have all the answers today. You don't have to run someone else's race. You just have to stay true to the voice inside you, the one that knows what matters most. There will be noise, there will be pressure to perform, to conform, to prove yourself constantly. But real purpose, it doesn't come from checking boxes or meeting expectations. It comes from living aligned with your values, with your faith, and with your unique calling. And when the road gets hard, because it will get hard, remember what's already in you. You've shown resilience, grit, creativity, and so much heart. You've already climbed mountains just to sit here today. And now it's time to step forward. You might build companies, you might create art, lead movements, teach, raise families, shape policy, change the narrative. However your race unfolds, run it boldly. Run it with integrity, run it with compassion, run it with courage to pause, to pivot, and to stand up for what is right. My hope for you is this, that you leave here today not just with a degree, but with a deeper sense of who you are and whose you are. That you run your race not for validation, but for purpose. So keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Let him be the center of everything you do, your decisions, your relationship, your work, your dreams. Because when he is your guide, you will never run alone. Brown, class of 2025, the world needs you and what only you can bring. So go forward with courage, with faith, and with joy. Congratulations.